Hello and welcome to Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. I'm your host, Will Bachman, and I'm here today with John Joseph, who is one of the co-founders of White Swan Automation. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me here. It's going to be great. I love it. I love your podcast. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So, John, you were at Lockheed Martin. You, with a couple friends, are experts in robotic process automation, and you thought there was space in the market for a firm that would do robotic process automation for small and medium-sized businesses. Tell me a
hmm
little bit about the type of work that your firm is doing and the type of clients that you're serving.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, a lot of our work is focused on mimicking human behavior, and that could be as simple as reading an invoice. It could also mean taking data from one website to another website, or even making accounting entries into an accounting system, right? The complexity that the robots that we use are able to perform and mimic certain human behavior has a lot to do with honestly what the human is trying to accomplish and how we can flow that out. So, although it is logic based, we're able to get a little bit complex when it comes to making some of the decisions, right? As long as they're, forecastable and there's a certain level of um, threshold that the company would like to have when it comes to having robots make decisions for them. But I think when we see a lot of our customers, a lot of them are, small to mid range, maybe 20 to 100 employees. They're, not Fortune 500 companies, but they're companies that are suffering from a lot of intensive, repetitive labor, what we like to call pain and suffering in the office. You
Mm-hmm.
have thousands and thousands of invoices that are coming in from hundreds of different vendors. Maybe if the office is like a shared service model, right? And they have employees that are manually reading these invoices, having to make sure they have the store number correct, and they're having to make accounting entries somewhere to pay these vendors on time. It can get There can be a lot of pain and suffering in the office, right? And through, robotics process automation and then also OCR technology, we're able to go in there and make a completely new workflow for them from the beginning to the end, to where it's, 95% hands-off experience, to where by the time they scan that invoice or it comes in electronically, it could be in the accounting system the same day, with minimal human effort. And it's been great to see a lot of the capacity that these companies have been able to open up, because they can retrain their employees to do a lot more what we would call more analytical work, instead of just, looking at a mundane repetitive process. Now they're actually more analyzing forecasts for the company, or analyzing where do they want to go next in the sector, and using a lot of that brain power and education that their staff already have.
Great. So let's take back up just a minute and robotic process automation. Uh,
hmm
it doesn't have anything to do with sort of the Ford assembly line and actual physical robots with the arms going out and putting
hmm
in the rivet. Tell us a little bit about the history of robotic process automation and some of the developments in that field for folks that haven't heard that term before.
Yeah. So, if and I'm a lot of your audience probably uses Excel, right? And Excel has been around since about 1987, after Lotus 1, 2, 3 and such. One of the things Excel brought to the table was macros. And a lot of people probably have experimented with recording macros in Excel and being able to do something repetitively inside their own Excel sheet. And if you take that same concept and you move it to a different program that can not only interact with just Excel, but it can interact with the internet, it can interact with multiple accounting systems, it can send out emails. Now you're recording a process or a flow over workflow, and you're able to do much more complex things that Excel couldn't do just by itself anymore. So there's a lot of different vendors who offer different robots that focus on, of course, different workflows. Um, the three largest ones right now are Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and UiPath. And those three are familiar to us, and each one of those robots have a different kind of scope. I would say that they do a lot better than the others. Um, but that's kind of the history, is that you're seeing the same technology that we've had within recording macros in Excel, but now to a higher level where it interacts with multiple systems. And the nice thing is, it's no longer the IT departments that are maintaining these robots. A lot of it are the functional finance and accounting people who are able to establish these robots and also sustain them, because the user interface of these robots, you don't have to learn a whole new language anymore. A lot of it is much more simpler to create.
Now, there's some even more consumer friendly types of robotic process automation. I mean, Zapier comes to mind, which at Umbrex we use for some tasks, as well as
Hmm.
even simpler if this, then that, or
Oh yeah.
IFTTT. Tell us a little bit about uh, the various consumer friendly process automation tools that consultants, listeners of the show might want to get started with if they have some process they
Hmm.
want to automate. What are some of the ones out there?
I would probably suggest, for the number one overall, I would say, from my own personal experiences, UiPath is a great one to, I guess, get your feet wet. Maybe look up some YouTube videos, kind of look at what UiPath robots can do. Their licensing model is pretty easy and straightforward. Automation Anywhere is another one that is pretty nice with their licensing, and also you can get your feet wet with that. But I think UiPath has a game up, because UiPath has their own kind of academy and certification all in like one little place, so that from the ground level, you can take certain roles that you might want to have, maintaining that robot or sustaining it or developing it, and then go through their courses. And it's all user friendly, very easy to learn. And I think for most people out there, UiPath would be a good connection with the systems that they have already in place with their IT infrastructure.
Yeah, in order of magnitude, how much does it
Hmm.
cost if you wanted to use UiPath? And if maybe for a listener to the show, many of them are independent consultants. How much
Hmm.
would it cost to get just one license for one person if you want to automate some of your own tasks?
Yeah, so I think with with different robotic vendors, right? The licensing is going to depend on how much you buy up front. Um, with the different licenses of the, I would probably say, robot. But with UiPath, I would say with a robot working per year for a license, it's probably, depending on your volume, around 4,000 or so. But that's a 24/7 um, capacity of a resource that you're able to use. So what we see a lot of times is, don't think of a workflow that you're trying to automate and say, well, I have one workflow, I need one robot. Um, what you should start thinking of is, how long will the robot take to complete my workflow? And then if it only takes 2 hours, that means you have another 22 hours of capacity you can use on that license. So it can be multiplied to where one robot is doing 15 to 20 different um, workflows for you every single day. You can schedule it. That's kind of where the cost structure comes in, and the way to kind of think about it when you're wanting to dip your toe in the water.
If someone doesn't, if they're running a solo practice and they don't, need even 24 hours a day, is there more like fractional licenses where you could say, look, I just want it for 2 hours a day. That's it.
I think there are some. Um, I don't. I don't know. I know that some robotics companies are looking into that. I don't have anything off the top of my head right now that I can suggest for that one, but it's just kind of like just the way it used to be. Now that you can rent cloud data or server cores, I'm sure that their RPA group is going to have something like that as a service offering.
Okay. And for the more consumer focused ones like Zapier, what are the other ones that are more comparable to Zapier that might be more in the, I don't know, 50 or $100 range, something like that per month?
Well, I would think that Automation Anywhere would probably be around that kind of price range for some of their more simpler products. Um, but I don't have any other suggestions than that one right now.
All right. So let's walk through a case example
Hmm.
of your firm, and I'd like to get into the details. Now, you can certainly sanitize it, but can you give us an example of a company that you've served? Maybe just tell us, a little bit about what sort of company it is. Again, don't need to share their name, and
Hmm.
how you helped them.
Yeah. So um, there's a lot of examples. Let me just pick a good one here. So you can think of a large company, 100,000 employees or more. We're talking, billions of dollars when it comes to a lot of their different departments. And they have employees, definitely, 100 plus employees working different types of payroll, hundreds of employees doing different AR or AP, um, all sorts of things. And what we've been able to do is pretty much take a look at their processes and their workflows and their pain points and get a list of different, things that they know that they're doing manually today. And I think a good example is if you're in a corporation, every IT group probably has a long list of asks that the functional team is asking for, either customizing a program, making it a little bit easier, running reports automatically for them. A lot of those um, asks are put to the wayside sometimes because of either security concerns the company might have or there's just bigger fish to fry, right? So the functional teams are usually having to just get used to doing something manually because the IT department is somewhat expensive and it's hard to get their time. Well, there's a small group, within that large organization that had about 40 employees that were billing out different vendors that they did work for, and they needed a way to find out what invoices that they needed to send out because according to the contracts, you only could bill them once every while, right? So you had a rolling kind of 30 days to send out an invoice. And what our robots were able to do is start from the very beginning of the process where they would log in at, say, 2 in the morning when no one's at work, right? They'd log into the accounting system, they would run the specific um, reports to then find out which vendors they had to go and bill out. And then they would uh, take that information and store it in a database and highlight the ones that were the most sensitive or the most high value invoices that they would want humans to take care of. And a lot of that pre work was all done before 6 in the morning. So now when the team logs onto their computers, all of that pre work is done for them. They can focus on invoicing those customers exactly the way they needed to. And we're just talking about the invoices that had to be sent manually. For a lot of the invoices that were pre approved with the customer, those were kind of on a whitelist with our robot to where now the robot just sends those invoices out automatically if they're pre approved. So the volume of invoices that humans had to process went down by about half, and hundreds of hours were saved every week because of all that pre work and all of that invoices that got sent out automatically, where it used to be very manual. So that's kind of just one example, and that can be repeated in a lot of different sectors where you have people doing a lot of manual pre-work just to do manual after work, where robots can kind of help and step in for whatever the threshold the company has confidence level wise with their workflow.
Okay. What's another example? Is there of another use case other than invoicing and accounting?
Okay. So sometimes we all want to gather information either because of auditing, or if there's an auditing internal audit or an external audit. And sometimes external auditors or internal auditors want a sample size of a certain pieces of information out there in the systems, right? We see that asked for a lot where there might be, an auditor comes out of nowhere. They say, "Hey, I need 100 of these different parcels from this different program." Well, we can get a robot set up to where whenever that ask is there, the turnaround time for that can be much faster and much more accurate because, say, their contract numbers or IT portfolios or customer information, just anything that's already out there hanging around somewhere in your systems on a database somewhere that you have, or even screenshots. A lot of times we have human beings still manually going out there taking screenshots of different things for audit purposes. Um, you know, we can design robots to go out there and do that automatically so that when you do have that ask for either corporate, internal audit, external audit, or anything, that can already be set up to where it's a quick turnaround time. And before you send that back to whoever asked for it, you can always have humans look over what the robot did, but all that manual work that you already know that you had to do, we can get that set up to where you don't have to do that anymore.
That's amazing. Tell me about the process of one of your engagements. So,
Hmm.
how do you, is there like a diagnostic, and then is there a standard kind of, 3 or 4 steps that you go through of phases of one of these projects? Walk me through how a typical project works.
Yeah, so I think a typical project works when the company realizes there's enough pain and suffering to where we might want to get rid of it, right? If it's taking one screenshot a year, no one's really going to complain about that. But if you're having to do that every hour for every day, it kind of gets up there. So we get engaged when people realize, hey, we don't want our employees doing this particular process anymore. We think that there's better technology out there, but we just don't know what it is. So what we do is we usually have a meeting with them. There's usually a live demo to kind of help us understand the complexity of what they're looking to automate. And from just looking at the workflow, we're able to establish what IT tool would be best to fit their workflow, but not only that, but their culture. How much IT infrastructure do they have? What programs are they using? What complexity or what kind of guesswork is needed for this? Are there, or is it just kind of, step A to step B to step C? We're just trying to gauge the complexity, and from that we can understand what technology would be best for them. And then from there, we write up a business case. We kind of show them usually a demo of the technology that we're suggesting so that they can kind of see with their own eyes what the future could look like for them. And then from there, we start working on the project, and then we complete the project, and then everyone's happy. We like to work with companies that definitely want to learn how to do this technology themselves too. A lot of the technology we use, you don't have to be an IT infrastructure to maintain. A lot of these programs are able to be used by accounting, by finance people, business managers, and we take the time to help train them so that if there is small adjustments that need to be made, they're self-sufficient, that they can take care of it themselves, and they can grow with any future workflow changes or anything else that comes up that they might want to take a crack at. So that's kind of how we work.
And then these robots, I mean, they're logging into all these different systems and so forth. So,
Hmm.
how do people may be concerned about security and passwords and so forth? Talk to me
Oh,
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, with a lot of different companies, they have like either an IT team or an HR team that kind of handles login information and passwords. You can look at these robots. The best way to usually set them up is you just pretend they're almost like a new employee. They have their own ID so that when they log into these systems, there's an audit trail. You know exactly what the robot's doing at all times or when it's signed into something. And then a lot of our robotic programs have what we call vaults where you can store that password for that employee and or for that robot, and anyone who has access to that vault has an audit trail, who logged in to see the password. Was it for development or sustainment? Was it for a production fix or anything like that? So the people who definitely have been making a lot of these robotic process automation tools definitely have security in mind. And these robots aren't like invisible in the shadows or anything. They're going to be treated just like if a human was logging on to a system to access information. So many of the IT controls that are already established within these companies, they rarely ever have to change just because a robot enters the workflow. It's usually mimicking the human behavior anyways, so all the IT controls still stay the same.
Do you have any rules of thumb on when a company should start thinking about, maybe we should automate this? I mean, we can say at one extreme, if one employee has to do something that takes 1 hour per year, you can pretty firmly say, okay, probably don't need to automate that. It's probably not going to be worth the time to pay your firm to come in and automate that. If there was 20 employees doing the exact same task for 40 hours a week every week, and it was a very straightforward algorithmic thing, then you'd say, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely, you should probably automate that. Absolutely. Where is sort of the place where it starts becoming, going from no to yes? Like, is it,
Mm-hmm.
if you have effectively sort of 10 person hours per week, is that the break point? Or if you have 20 employees doing one task that takes them an hour every day, like where should companies think
Yeah.
about saying, okay, now we should think about doing automation?
Okay. So if I had to take that very philosophical question and pack it into a rule of thumb, I'll probably say that when management wants to grow faster than their payroll can handle, that's when you need to look at automation. And um, hiring humans to do more work is something that has traditionally been the solution to more work, but that's not a good rule of thumb anymore. If you're ignorant in the ideas of what robotic process automation can do, or OCR, I would say give us a call or go look at some videos at what other companies have done for their own processes. Because as soon as you see the light of how much automation can help or what it actually can do and how complex it can get for you, um, workflow wise, you're going to see that a lot of the things that you just kind of took for granted and just thought, well, you know what, as an accounting or finance major or doing taxes or anything, this is just the way the workplace is. This is how we've always done it. This is kind of the way we need to continue to do it. That's not how businesses are going to grow in the future and survive. I can say that I've been part of a lot of council meetings with like Walmart, Disney, SeaWorld, a lot of the major companies that are in Florida right now, Siemens, they're all looking into every part of their business. Just how can we automate even the simple tasks? Because once our employees start thinking about automation, they're going to give us suggestions on what would help them the most. That opens up the capacity for us to put them to do more analytical tasks. Therefore, we don't have to hire as much anymore just because we have harder and more work. So the rule of thumb is if you can't keep up with the payroll because of the work you got, you definitely want to look at automation and give us a call.
Fantastic. And John, where can people find you online?
So our website is whiteswanautomation.com. We have all of our little bios there, and all of our little different experiences there. And we have contact emails. We have our cell phone numbers there. We love to meet with anyone online, and we can set up meetings with you, look at any processes you want to take a look at. And we'll just tell you up front, what kind of technology would be best suited for you and what that would look like.
Fantastic. Well, John, thanks so much for joining. Listeners will include that link in the show notes, and let's go think about what we can automate. Thanks, John.
No problem. Thank you.